meditate, practice.
今天晚上我不会讲太多有关于佛教的哲学或者理论，会教导大家如何坐禅。
And the whole idea of meditation, as practiced in Buddhism, comes from the Buddha.
我们坐禅的这个方式来自佛陀。
But the techniques that are used have existed for thousands of years.
但是这个方法其实存在了好几千年。
And also there are thousands and thousands and thousands of techniques, meditation techniques.
事实上也有成千上万的不同的坐禅的方式。
As you probably know, there are Buddhist meditation techniques.
你大概知道有佛教的坐禅方式。
There are Hindu style techniques, yoga techniques.
也有印度教的瑜伽的静坐方式。
There are Taoist techniques.
然后我们有道教的方式。
There are Christian techniques.
甚至基督教的静坐方式。
I know a lot about those.
我知道很多。
There are, and then there's all kinds of meditation techniques that we would associate with native people.
甚至一些原住民，他们也有一些静坐的方式。
I'm from the United States, and there's many native people live there, and they also have what we would call meditation techniques.
我来自美国，那边有很多原住民，他们也有一些的修行方式，我们称它为静坐。
Now, these techniques can be used for all kinds of different purposes.
这些静坐的方法可以运用在很多不同的场合。
But for us, in Zen, it's important to understand why we do these practices.
对于禅宗来说，最重要的是我们要了解为什么我们要去进行修行。
Because sometimes that can be a little bit confusing.
因为有时候会让人有一点迷惑。
Now everybody knows that the Buddha sat underneath a tree for a very long period of time, and he did some practicing, and then got enlightened.
大家都知道，佛陀坐在菩提树下静坐了6年，然后有一天他看到星星，然后就开悟了。
So this enlightenment was actually a discovery of what he truly was.
他的开悟其实是发现他真正的自我。
So he woke up to what he truly was.
他觉醒到他真正的自我。
So that's the first meaning of practicing or meditation in Buddhism is to find out what you truly are. We say find your true self.
所以在佛教的静坐里面，坐禅里面，第一最重要的就是要了解自己，我们称它为找到我们的自信。
And then he used what he had found to help relieve human beings' suffering.
然后他运用他所证悟到的东西来帮助解除人民的痛苦。
So here's a very simple thing. If you don't remember one thing from the night, remember this. Zen in Buddhism means find your true self and help the world.
所以这边有一个很重要的东西，如果你们对今晚所讲的东西都忘记的话，你只要记住这个就可以了。也就是说，佛教跟禅宗最重要的教导就是找到你的自信，帮助这个世界。
So Buddha practiced to answer what we call the great question of life and death.
佛教的修行呢，是要找到我们人生生死的大疑问的这个答案。
So if you look inside, you'll find that inside there's a question about, what is this all about?
如果你们往内心关照，你们会发现到你们内心会有一个很大的疑问：这是到底是什么呢
Why are we here?
我们为什么来到这里
So every human being is raised up by somebody.
每一个人都是由其他的人抚养长大的。
And as you're being raised, you learn a culture. A culture is put into your mind. It's kind of like software going into your computer.
那当你长大的时候，你学会了一种文化，这个文化是由其他的人灌输到你的脑袋里面的，就像我们把软体灌到电脑里面去一样。
So I was raised in the United States. Mostly I have, my software is mostly like Western European American culture.
那我从小是在美国长大的，所以进入我的脑子里面的那个软体呢，都是欧洲或者美国的文化。
And if you're from Singapore, you have some kind of mixture of Chinese, English, Malay, Indian, perhaps even Islamic culture in your head.
那你们在新加坡长大，那你们学习到的可能就是一些华族的，或者马来族，或者印度族，或者欧洲人的一些文化，灌输到你的脑袋里面去。
So every culture teaches you that there's a purpose to life. Right?
每一种不同的文化都教导你说，人生是有一个目的的。
So those can be religious definitions.
可能是宗教意义的目的。
They can be non-religious definitions, like we're put here for shopping, something like that.
也可能不是宗教性的，譬如说，像你怎么样去逛街。
But most of them revolve around the 5 desires.
大部分呢都跟5种欲望有关系。
So, if you look at what human beings do, it seems like a lot of what they do is concerned with, one desire is eating. Right?
对人们来说，我们做的很多事情跟其中一种欲望有关系，就是食物进食。
But I think everybody understands that we're not put here on the planet Earth for eating.
但是大家大概应该了解到，我们来到这个地球上面的目的，应该不是只是为了进食。
But we spend a lot of our time eating and thinking about eating and making money so we can eat and talking to our friends about where a good place to eat is. Right?
但是我们花很多的时间进食，然后在想什么食物比较好吃，或者跟我们的朋友讨论看哪里有好吃的东西。
That's natural.
那是很自然的。
Because you have to eat to live, so of course you naturally want to do that.
因为你必须进食才能够存活，所以很自然的你会进食。
But in English we have a saying, do you eat to live or do you live to eat?
然后有一个西方谚语说，你是为了生存而进食，还是为了进食而生存？
So I come from the United States. I know when you come to Singapore, a lot of the food is really good.
那我来自美国，那我来到新加坡之後，就發現到新加坡的食物非常非常好吃，
Much better than the United States.
比美國的好吃太多。
But I don't think anybody would move to Singapore because the food was good.
但是我相信没有人會因為新加坡的食物很好吃而移民到新加坡。
Then there's sex. Every human being is interested in sex on some level.
然後第二種欲望就是性欲，每一個人對性欲都有不同的這個欲望。
But then again, you wouldn't say the reason that we're here is for sex, although everybody's interested in it.
雖然每個人對性欲都很有興趣，但是你們應該不會覺得說我們來到地球上是為了性欲。
And then the third desire that really pulls on you a lot is sleep.
第三種很有趣的欲望就是睡眠。
But nobody thinks that we're here to sleep.
但是沒有人會認為說我們來到地球上是為了睡覺。
But everybody does it.
但是每個人都會睡覺。
In fact, you spend about a third of your life.
事實上，我們生命裡面有1/3的時間是用在睡覺。
But it's not an Olympic sport.
但是那不是一種奧林匹克的競賽。
Then, next is money.
第四種欲望就是金錢。
Now this is very interesting because a lot of people do think that we're here for money.
这很有趣，因为很多人会认为说，我们来到地球上就是为了赚很多钱，
So we invest a lot of our time and our energy into accumulating money.
所以我们花了很多的时间跟精力累积财富。
And we even judge each other in terms of how much money we have.
我们甚至依每一个人他们所拥有的财富来判断他们的成功与否。
You know how many times I can see some of them here. There'll be clever sayings on your on T-shirts.
有些人的 T 恤上面有一些很有趣的标语。
During the 60s in the United States, there was a T-shirt that said, "Whoever has the most stuff when they die wins."
那在美国，我们看过一个很有趣的标语，他说：当一个死的时候拥有最多的人、最多东西的人呢，就是赢家。
Right, so that's meant to be funny, but it's not so funny.
那是好笑的东西，但事实上并不是那么好笑。
And then the fifth of these 5 desires that really pull on people is what's called fame.
那第5种抓着人牢牢不放的欲望，我们称为地位或者名誉。
But what it really means is social acceptance.
它的意思就是我们获得这个社会的认可。
So human beings are very attached to praise and blame.
人们非常的执着称赞跟埋怨。
Right? So if you ever talk to your parents, you understand about praise and blame.
如果你有跟你的父母亲沟通的话，你就知道什么叫称赞跟埋怨。
So usually when people praise you, inside you have a good feeling. Even if it's fake, you still have a good feeling.
当有人称赞你的时候，你心里会觉得很好受，太好了。即使它是假的，你还是觉得很开心。
If somebody says something bad to you, then even if it's wrong, you still feel bad inside.
但是如果有人埋怨你说的不好听的东西的话，即使他讲的是错的，你心里面还是很难过。
You can particularly see it with young adults because they're very concerned about what the friends think of them. You know, are they cool? Are they dressing right? Is their hair right? Is their nose too big? You know, many things like that.
特别是年轻人，他们在那个时候那个阶段，他们对朋友的一些的看法非常的重视，他们会希望说他们的朋友觉得说他们很好，或者很帅，或者很酷，或者等等这样子。
But the Buddha found that actually all these 5 things, none of these, the satisfaction of any of these 5 things doesn't lead to the end of human suffering. In fact, it creates human suffering.
但是佛陀发现到这5种欲望的满足，并不能够让我们离苦。事实上，这5种欲望带来了痛苦。
So the Buddha is very interesting because he had all these 5 things, because he was the son of a wealthy, we would call him a king.
那佛陀其实他拥有这5种不同的东西，他是一位王子。
So he had a good apartment, he had a Lamborghini, he had women, he had everything.
所以佛陀他有很好的房子、很好的车子、很好的女人，然后很好的地位，他的朋友都很喜欢他。
But then he saw 3 things, and it greatly disturbed him. He saw an old person, a sick person, and a dead person.
但是佛陀看到3种人，这3种人对他产生了很大的影响。他看到一个老人、一个病人，还有一个死人。
When he saw those 3 things, when we see those 3 things, then he saw, oh, I have all this stuff, but it's not going to make me happy in the end. You know, it's old age, sickness, and death.
那佛陀发现到说，当他看到这个老人、病人跟死人的时候，他发现到他所拥有的那5种大家都很希望的东西，并不能够解除他的痛苦。
So that's where meditation comes from, because when we see this, that in the end we're not going to be happy, inside appears a question, and what? What are we here for?
那坐禅就是从这里开始的，因为当我们发现到 拥有这5种东西，并不能够真正带给我们快乐我们心里面就会产生一个很大的疑问：到底我们来这里是要做什么？
And you look around the world, you see all this suffering.
然后，如果你纵观这整个世界的话，你发现到世界上很多的苦难。
People do really bad things to each other in pursuit of these 5 things.
人们为了争夺这5种东西，伤害其他的人。
It's kind of interesting now how there's these 3 little islands in the East China Sea, and now China and Japan are fighting over these 3 islands.
现在在东亚有3个小岛，中国跟日本为了这3个小岛不断的争执。
And we too will fight about the smallest little thing and create suffering for other people.
我们也一样，我们为了很芝麻绿豆的小事互相争执，然后带给大家很多的痛苦。
So behind all of this suffering is what we call the great question of life and death, and that is, what are you?
在这个痛苦背后有一个很大的问题，我们称它为生死大事问题。这个问题就是你到底是什么？
What is the meaning of life?
人生的意义是什么？
Why do we suffer?
为什么我们要受苦？
So answering that question is the reason behind Buddhist and Zen Chan style meditation.
回答这个问题呢，就是佛教以及禅宗修行的最大的目的。
So that's why we do it.
这就是为什么我们要那么做。
My teacher was always saying, why do you practice? Why do you practice?
我的老师常常说：“你为什么要修行？你为什么要修行？”
So many times, not all the time, but many times when we do something, it's for ourselves.
很多时候我们做事情只是为了自己。
So he was always asking, why do you practice? And of course, the reason we practice is the same reason that the Buddha, to answer the big question of life and death and then help the world.
我的老师常问你为什么要修行？当然，我们修行的目的跟佛陀一样，就是找到我们人生生死大问题的解答，然后帮助这个世界。
That means we're not practicing for ourselves.
也就是说，我们不是为了自己修行。
Although in one sense we are. We are one of all those suffering people.
当然，从某个角度来讲，我们也是在帮助自己，因为我们是这所有芸芸受苦众生里面的一份子。
There's a saying in Buddhism, big shout, big echo, small shout, small echo.
在佛教里面有一个说法，就是很大的声响，你会得到很大的回响；很小的声响，很小的回响。
So Buddha made a big shout.
佛陀他发出了怒吼，很大的吼声。
Because he perceived clearly that this suffering is so much. And what are we going to do about it?
因为佛陀发现到说，人间的这个苦难是非常非常巨大的，我们到底要做什么呢？
So he's an example of big shout, big echo.
就是一个例子，就是很大的响声，然后有很大的回响。
So his echo is the teaching that we follow.
他的回响就是他的教导，我们一直跟随的教导。
So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual techniques.
现在我要给大家介绍这个坐禅的方法。
It's important to remember that these are just techniques.
很重要的是要记得，这只是一种方法。
People get very, very attached to these techniques. Don't attach to these techniques. They're just techniques.
人们很执着方法，所以不要执着方法，它只是一个方法。
And as with any technique, the important thing is not the technique of what it does.
对于任何方法来讲都一样，重要的并不是那个方法，而是这个方法要教你什么。
So these are techniques to show you what you truly are.
这些方法是为了要让你自己去发现到你自己到底是什么。
And here's the problem. They aren't techniques that get you anything.
问题来了，这些方法并不是要让你获得什么东西。
In fact, and here's the first shocking statement I'm going to make tonight, you won't get anything from meditation.
那这里有一个会让你们大家很惊讶的东西，就是你不能够从坐禅里面获得什么东西。
You're not going to get anything from it.
你不能够从他那边获得任何东西。
And inside your mind, you're saying, well, why am I going to do it?
然后你心里会想说啊，那我来这里干嘛？
So I explain what that means, why you're not going to get anything.
所以我现在要稍微解释一下，为什么你不会获得任何东西。
The Buddha, when he got enlightenment, said, how wonderful, everything already has it.
佛陀证得开悟的时候，他说：“奇哉奇哉，大地众生已经拥有了，
Everything already has Buddha nature.
一切都已经拥有佛性。
But human beings don't understand that. Because they don't understand it, they suffer.
但是人类不了解，因为他们不了解，所以他们受苦。
So the reason you're not going to get anything is because you already have it.
你不会获得任何东西的原因，是因为你已经拥有了。
So in the Diamond Sutra, the Buddha says to his student, in this case it was Subhuti, Subhuti, did I get anything when I got enlightenment?
在《金刚经》里面，佛问他的弟子须菩提：“当我证得开悟的时候，我有没有获得什么东西？”
Now, Subhuti is a really good student.
须菩提是一个很好的学生，
So he said, no, Buddha, you didn't get anything.
须菩提说：“哦，佛陀，你并没有获得任何东西。”
Then Buddha said, yeah, that's correct.
佛陀说：“啊，对了对了，
If I would have gotten anything, it wouldn't have been enlightenment.
如果我获得任何东西的话，那就不是开悟了。”
So this is the good news. We're not practicing to get anything, so you can relax.
所以这是好消息。我们修行并不是为了获得任什么的东西，所以你可以放松。
This is not a contest to see who can meditate better so they can get something and the person next to you didn't get it.
这并不是一个比赛，让你可以获得一样东西，但是你隔壁那位没有获得，我比他强，并不是那样。
Meditation is not a competitive sport.
坐禅并不是一种竞赛活动，
It's just some very simple techniques to allow you to see what you really are.
它只是一个很简单的方法，让你可以真正的发现到你自己到底是什么。
That's why Buddhist teachers always say, don't look outside. Buddha is not outside of you. Buddha is inside you.
所以佛教的老师常常都说，不要往外面去寻找，只要关照内心。
So now let me tell you how to do it. The techniques that the Buddha used were very simple.
佛陀他所采用的方法非常简单，现在我给大家介绍一下。
Also, Zen techniques are very simple.
禅宗的方法也非常简单，
They're a little more complicated than what the Buddha did.
禅宗的方法比佛陀用的方法稍微复杂一点，
But some meditation techniques can be very complicated.
但是有一些静坐的方式非常非常复杂。
But what the Buddha did was very, very simple technique.
但是佛陀他采用的方法非常非常简单，
He just paid attention to his breath going in, out, in, out, in, out. Very simple.
佛陀只是专注他的呼吸，吸入、呼出，吸入、呼出，吸入、呼出，非常简单。
So now you know everything about meditation.
现在你对坐禅已经完全了解了。
But your mind says, oh, wait a minute.
那你心里面想说，只有这样吗？
I want something more.
多一点，给我多一点吧。
So usually Chan-style meditation techniques are also very simple.
通常禅宗的坐禅方式也非常简单，
And there's a reason for that.
它是有原因的。
So usually when you're thirsty, you can drink many kinds of things, right?
当你口渴的时候，你可以喝很多种不同的东西。
You can drink Coke.
你可以喝可口可乐，
You can drink Coke Light.
你可以喝那个无糖的可乐，
You can drink Coke Zero.
你可以喝可乐零，
You can drink Pijiu.
你可以喝啤酒，
Or you can drink water.
你也可以喝水。
So actually, the thing that satisfies your thirst the best is the simplest thing, which is water.
其实能够让你解渴的东西是最简单的，就是水。
I read in the news today, this is really funny, that Lady Gaga is coming out with a whole new line of healthy water for sale.
我在报纸上看到一个很有趣的广告，他说 Lady Gaga 她会带给大家很多种各样不同的饮料。
So somebody said on Twitter, yeah, stop drinking unhealthy water, drink healthy water.
然后有人在网络上面说，不要再去喝不健康的饮料，喝健康的饮料。
Anyway, the thing that satisfies your thirst the best is the simplest thing, and the same is true of meditation.
那你解渴的东西其实是最简单的东西，对坐禅来说也一样。
So there's three important things in Zen meditation.
在禅宗的修行里面有3种很重要的东西，
First is your body,
第一是你的身体，
second is your breath,
第二是你的呼吸，
and third is what you do with your mind.
第三是你怎么样去放下你的思维。
So let me discuss the body first.
首先，我给大家讲一讲身体，
Because it comes from India and it's a part of a long yoga tradition. You know, the Buddha usually sat like this on the floor on a cushion or on a mat.
那因为这来自印度的一些的修行方法，像瑜伽之类的，所以佛陀呢，他是坐在地上，坐在一个蒲团上面。
So many times when you see the Buddha portrayed, he's sitting cross-legged on something.
当你看佛陀的像的时候，你会看到他是坐在一个东西上面，然后他是盘腿的。
So we also sit like that, right? All of you are sitting.
所以我们也是盘腿。
So what you want to do is find a posture that's good for you.
所以你需要做的就是找一个适合你的姿势，
That allows you to keep your back straight.
可以让你的背坐直。
So there's many different techniques. Like he's sitting full lotus with his feet up on the top of his thighs. I can't do that. He's a yoga teacher.
比如说，我们这个瑜伽老师他是做双盘的，他2只脚都放在大腿上面。
And if you look closely at the Buddha statues, he's also sitting like that. But he's just a statue.
如果你们看佛像的话，佛像它也是双盘的，不过它只是一个像。
So don't worry if you can't do any of these techniques because actually they're not that important.
所以不要担心，如果你不能双盘，因为它并不是那么重要。
Meditation is for your mind, not for your body.
坐禅是为了调心，并不是为了身体。
So you can sit full lotus, or you can sit sitting. There's a half lotus position where you put your one foot up on your thigh, and the other underneath.
你可以双盘，也可以单盘。
And then Korean monks, because they sit so long, they usually sit what's called Burmese style. So they just pass their ankles by each other, sitting like this, right?
你也可以这样的散盘，就是把2只脚都放在蒲团上面。
Now what that does is you want to try to get your knees down on the mat, but if you can't, it's okay.
这姿势的一个方法就是让你的2只膝盖都能够放在蒲团上面，这样子会比较稳。但是如果你做不到，没有问题。
So if your knees are down on the mat, it forms a tripod, your 2 knees and your rear end.
因为如果你的2个膝盖都在蒲团上面的话，你膝盖还有你的背后的这个，都是坐在蒲团上面会比较稳。
This triangular position is very stable.
那种三角形的这种有3只脚的或者3个支点的这种姿势非常的稳定。
So if you're sitting like I'm sitting, it's easy to go like this because I'm sitting on only one point.
如果你做的方式像禅师那样的话，只坐在一个支点上面，那就很容易左右晃。
The more stable the position, the easier it is on the back.
你做的越稳定的话，对你的背来说就越舒服。
But given all of these techniques, you want to find out what works for you and for your body.
所以这边有一些不同的方法，你需要找到一个适合你的身体的方法。
Because you don't want to spend your meditation time fighting with your body.
因为你不要在坐禅的时候跟你的身体斗争。
So the next thing is having your back straight.
第二呢，就是让你的背坐直。
So you want to be upright and erect, but you want to be relaxed.
你要保持你的背直，但是也要放松。
So it isn't like a soldier at attention, but it is upright.
这不像一个士兵那样站得很直，但是你还是保持直的，这是比较自然。
And the reason for this upright posture is because it indicates that you're aware and awake.
因为当你保持这个背直的时候，你会比较清醒，你可以比较容易的关照。
So if I'm sitting like this, right away you get the message. I'm not very aware and I'm not very awake.
所以如果你像禅师刚才那样做的话，那你马上就发现到，不是那么的清醒，也不是那么的能够关照。
If I'm sitting like this, then at least it looks like I'm aware.
如果我们做得很直的话，至少看起来是很清醒的。
So usually, not all the time, but the mind follows the body. So this posture thing is important.
通常我们的念头会跟随我们的身体，所以这个姿势是很有用的。
The next thing is the head. You want to have your head right on top of the spinal column, and then you want to tip it forward just very, very slightly.
另外就是你的头，你的颈项，让你的颈项也就是挺直，然后让你的头刚好就放在你的脊椎上面，然后把你的下巴稍微往内收一点点。
So that you're looking down at your eye, and you cast your eyes down about a 45-degree angle.
那你的视线呢是大概45度的看着地板。
In Zen meditation, we keep our eyes open.
我们禅宗坐禅的方式是把眼睛张开的。
The whole idea is to wake up. So if you have your eyes closed, it's much easier to go to sleep.
我们坐禅的目的是为了觉醒。如果你把眼睛关起来的话，那就很容易睡着。
So one of the simple meditation techniques that Zen uses is keeping your eyes open.
所以我们坐禅的时候，最简单的方法就是把眼睛张开。
So here's a very simple thing about meditation. Meditation, all meditation means keeping a just now mind.
所有坐禅的方式的目的呢，就是要保持当下的心。
You're trying to stay right here, right now, and awake.
你要保持在现在当下这里，然后保持清醒。
In fact, all meditation is basically that, is to give you this just now mind.
事实上，所有的静坐方式都是为了给你这个当下的心。
That's why we keep our eyes open.
这就是为什么我们张开眼睛。
Because if you close your eyes, it's very easy to start doing this. You've all done nodding meditation.
因为当你把眼睛关起来的时候，你就很容易打瞌睡。你们大家都做过很多打瞌睡的静坐。
And then you can start doing the famous Z mantra.
然后你就可以做那个非常有名的 Z 的咒语。
And also, if your eyes are closed, it's much easier to go off in long trains of thought.
而且当你把眼睛关起来的时候，你的思维很容易就跑掉了。
So we're trying to stay just here, just now. We don't. These are techniques to allow us to let go of our long trains of thought that we're always going into them.
那我们把眼睛张开， 就是为了保持当下现在觉醒，让我们的心比较容易不会一直往外跑。
So keeping your eyes open is a technique
所以把眼睛张开是一个方法，
to help you not follow those long trains of thought.
使让你的心比较不容易那么容易的跟随你的念头在跑。
So usually we keep our eyes about half open and we look at the floor in front of us.
通常我们把眼睛半张开，然后看着地板，
And we look with very soft, what's called bodhisattva eyes, soft eyes, tender, gentle eyes.
我们以非常柔和、慈悲的眼光，我们称它为菩萨的眼睛来看着地板。
So you don't want to stare at the floor, you just want to perceive the floor.
所以你不要瞪着这个地板，只是关照地板。
The next thing is the breath.
第三就是你的呼吸。
In Zen style meditation, we breathe from our lower belly. It's called Tanqi, it's called abdominal breathing.
我们禅宗的坐禅方式在呼吸